Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. US President Trump widens his trade war, announces 50% tariff on copper without mentioning when it will take effect, also promises tariffs on semiconductors and pharma, warns pharma tariffs could even hit 200%, but only after 18 months. The wait for a decision on the India-United States mini trade deal gets longer. Sources say that the ball is now in the US president's court and further talks have not been ruled out. Trump reiterates that all members of the BRICS bloc, including India, will have to pay an additional 10% tariff. Sensex and Nifty remain stuck in a tight range and end with minor cuts. Inflows into equity mutual funds see a 24% rise in June. Gold ETFs see a sharp surge. SIP inflows touch a record high of 27,000 crore rupees. Shares of Vedanta decline after a short seller says the company resembles a Ponzi scheme. Viceroy Research takes short positions on Vedanta's debt, saying the group structure is financially unstable and operationally compromised. Vedanta hits back, calls the report a malicious combination of selective misinformation and baseless allegations. The SunTV family feud is likely to have ended. Money Control reports the Maran brothers may have settled the dispute over shareholding after mediation by Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. Quick commerce company Zepto set to raise up to $500 million in fresh funding rounds. Also say existing investors will lead the round, which values the company at $7 billion. Cisco seeks to triple its India business, citing huge advantage due to demographics. Global CEO Chuck Robbins says India is among the top 3 markets for the company, adds uncertainty around tariffs is freezing business decisions worldwide. That's an exclusive. At least 9 killed as multiple vehicles plunge into a river following a bridge collapse in Gujarat's Vadodara during peak morning hours. The death toll is expected to rise as search and rescue operations continue. At least 109 people are dead and more than 160 missing after floods ravaged the U.S. state of Texas. 86 people died in a single county in what is the worst flooding disaster in the U.S. in nearly 100 years. All right, our top story this evening. U.S. President Donald Trump is broadening his trade war. After threatening 14 countries with higher tariffs from August, Trump is now targeting copper imports and has promised higher duty on semiconductors and pharmaceutical products. Now, copper prices hit a record high in trade after Trump announced 50% tariffs. He's already imposed a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum imports. President Trump did not specify when the copper tariffs will take effect. Copper, remember, is the third most consumed metal behind iron and aluminium. Now, the U.S. imports nearly half of the copper it uses. That's not all. Trump also threatened tariffs on semiconductors and pharma imports, adding that duties on pharma could surge up to 200%. However, he promised 18 months so the pharma industry can be prepared for the tariffs. Now, 2 days ago, Trump had threatened 14 countries with higher tariffs from August, but there was no mention of India. Now, sources say the final decision on a mini trade deal with India squarely rests with President Trump, and further talks have not been ruled out. Trump has once again threatened 10% tariff on BRICS nations that include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, calling it an anti-American alliance.
They have to pay 10% if they're in BRICS, because BRICS was set up to hurt us. BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge.
Is that immediate, sir, or is
Yeah,
that
pretty
if
soon.
they engage in some behavior?
Well, if they're a member of BRICS, they're going to have to pay 10% tariff just for that one thing, and they won't be a member long. I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard. Ones we did seal, as you know, they're 50%. We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out.
Why don't you announce copper?
And we did cars. And now, today we're doing copper.
Copper and lumber. What would that tariff be on? The sectional tariff?
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
50%.
And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in, and after that they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. We'll give them a certain period of time to get their act together. But they were all here now. They all left. They went to other places because we allowed people that sat in this room allowed it to happen. And I don't allow it to happen. The people in this room don't allow it to happen.
Now, the decision on the India-United States mini trade deal is imminent. Sources have said that the ball is now in the US President Trump's court. Parikshit Luthra joins us now with the details. Parikshit, what can we expect?
Well, sources in the Indian government have been saying that talks between India and US on the mini trade deal or the early harvest trade deal have been quite positive. However, there are certain sticking points or unresolved issues which still remain. From the Indian side, the negotiations are over in terms of the deal that India could offer. And earlier, we were working with a 9 July deadline in mind with a view to have some sort of interim arrangements with the US so that the 26% reciprocal tariff threat could be averted. Now that the 9 July deadline for reciprocal tariff has been extended till the 1st of August, there may still be some room for negotiations, and there is a possibility that this trade deal may spill over the next few days or even weeks. However, the Indian government, we're told, and this is highly placed sources telling us that we've done whatever we could. For the moment, we are waiting for the Trump administration to decide whether they want to accept India's offer at this stage and have an interim deal and negotiate the rest of the sticking points later, or indicate to us that, yes, we do want a trade deal with India, but more issues, more of the unresolved issues need to be negotiated over the next few days. One can't rule out the Indian negotiating team going back to US again over the next few days. But frankly, all hinges on the president. It could happen over the next 1 or 2 days. We'll wait and see. But the sticking points remain agriculture and dairy. These are red lines for India. We will not be giving access. We've not given access to anyone for that matter. There is a threat of the BRICS tariff, which has also now come in, which is a new thing in terms of the talks between India and the United States. So let's see how India navigates. For the moment, we're waiting for Trump to give us the signal.
All right. Thank you, Parikshit, for that update. And speaking of tariffs, Cisco CEO Chuck Robbins has said that the uncertainty around tariffs is freezing business decisions worldwide. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV 18, Robbins added that the company will try to adapt to the tariffs and that its impact has not been meaningful yet.
Well, this is the issue in the business community right now is the uncertainty just freezes everyone. Because if and when we get to the end game, then we can adapt appropriately. And so if you look at the tariffs that were put in 2018, I think it was, we knew what they were put in, and we were able to kind of flex our dynamic supply chain in order to adapt to those things. And we'll do the same to the extent we can once we see what the end game looks like. But right now it's a little more complicated, looking at a multi-quarter P&L for the business because you just don't know which tariffs you have to consider. So what we've effectively decided to do is we're just going to look at our numbers based on what's in effect today. And then, I mean, we can do all sorts of speculating and scenario planning, but tomorrow they could be useless.
Right, on to the day's market action. Sensex and Nifty ended with minor cuts after a range-bound session. A sharp fall in Reliance in the last hour dragged the Nifty to levels below the 25,500 mark. IT stocks were under pressure ahead of TCS earnings tomorrow, with the index ending 1% lower. From equities to mutual funds, inflows into equity funds rose 24% in June after 5 straight months of decline. The improvement was largely driven due to inflows into mid-cap and small-cap funds. SIP inflows continued their solid run, crossing the 27,000 crore mark for the second straight month. Surabhi joins us now with a detailed report card.
After a really disappointing May, when flows had dipped below 19,000 crores, mutual fund equity inflows for the month of June have recovered. There's about a 24% recovery. You can see that last bar is now at 23,500. Now, how is it split across mid-cap, large-cap, small-cap? The preference for investors is still small and mid-caps. That's the headline, because you can see the large-cap funds there. They've recovered from May, but now compare this with how the flows are for mid and small. Mid-cap funds flows are about 3,750 crores. Small-cap fund flows are even better at 4,000 crores plus. So overall, there's a recovery coming in. But I do want to point out here that the data is telling, and it probably is telling us that the investors are becoming very smart. Because while equity funds have pulled in 23,500 odd crores, look at hybrid funds. They have also pulled in over 23,000 crores, 23,200 something to be more precise. So we're almost neck to neck in terms of pure equity flows and hybrid flows. And it's telling you that people are taking a balanced approach. They are looking at diversification. And the fact that a lot of the hybrid funds have very attractive tax structures as well now after the budget. This is making, this particular category fairly popular. The other good news is that the SIP picture is rock steady. In fact, monthly SIP flows are now above 27,000 crores. So that pillar is rising higher and higher. So looking fairly good.
Thank you, Surabhi, for that. A report published by US-based Shortseller Viceroy Research has alleged that the Vedanta group structure is financially unsustainable, operationally compromised, and poses a severe underappreciated risk to creditors. The company has hit back, calling the report a malicious combination of selective misinformation and baseless allegations. Now, Hormaz Fatakia joins us with more on this. Hormaz, what are the key allegations leveled by the Viceroy Research against Vedanta?
Another short seller saga that has emerged here, and this time around it is Viceroy Research. This come out with a note against Vedanta, and they've mentioned the fact that this entire group structure is financially unsustainable and operationally compromised and poses a severe underappreciated risk to the company's creditors. Now, they have highlighted the parent company, that is Vedanta Resources, that is systematically draining the listed entity by draining cash out to service its own debt burden, and this entire arrangement, according to Viceroy Research, has pushed the group on the brink of insolvency, is what they have mentioned. Now, certain observations that the Viceroy Group has made against Vedanta, they say that their interest expenses have vastly exceeded their reported note rates, and despite the decline in paydowns and restructuring, despite the decline in debt, the interest expenses continue to rise for the group. Now, they also say that there are a lot of non-performing operating subsidiaries with inflated asset values, is what they have observed, and the debt across these non-performing subsidiaries vastly exceeds their true value, and it is cross-collateralized across the group, is the observation that they have made, and billions of dollars worth of disputed amounts have been kept away from the balance sheet and are not disclosed in the financial statements, is what Viceroy Research has said. Now, over the last 4 years, Vedanta Limited has paid dividends worth over 80,000 crore rupees, where the parent company at one point of time owned around 65% stake, but they have sold that down to around 56% currently. And if you see the last 4 years as well, the payouts have ranged anywhere between 16,000 crores to as high as 40,000 crore rupees. Now, in a response to CNBC TV 18, the Vedanta Group said that this report is a malicious combination of selective misinformation and baseless allegations to discredit the group. and it has been issued without making any prior contacts to the company, and they have issued this with the sole objective of creating false propaganda. They've chose to sensationalize information that is already available in public domain, and the timing of the report is also suspect, and it could be ahead of the corporate activity that the group is about to undertake. They've also added disclaimers saying that the report is only for educational purposes on multiple occasions, and Vedanta continues to remain focused on the growth of their business, and they have appealed to avoid speculation and unsubstantiated allegations. In response, the Viceroy Group also wrote on X saying that they have dismissed their 85-page report thoroughly without attempting to discredit their work, and this is likely because they are unlikely to refute their holdings and their findings, and they are happy to take questions. So more short seller allegations emerging against Vedanta before the demerger is about to be completed. The stock reacting to that in response.
All right, thank you, Hormaz, for that update. Moving on, India's aviation regulator, DGCA, has told a parliamentary panel it is taking steps to curb the rise of airfares during periods of high demand. The DGCA said that it's working on a mechanism and may fix a price ceiling on certain routes during periods like festive seasons. Members of the panel also questioned official agencies and private airlines over safety standards being followed. The SunTV family feud is likely to have ended. Money Control reports that Maran brothers may have settled the dispute over shareholding after mediation by Tamil Nadu Chief Minister CM Stalin. Now, the Bombay High Court judge has recused from hearing HDFC Bank MD Shashidhar Jagdishan's plea to quash an FIR registered by Leelavati Hospitals Trust. This is the fourth judge that has recused himself from hearing the case. The HDFC Bank CEO had moved the Supreme Court to seek relief after 3 judges refused to hear the plea. However, the Apex Court did not hear the case after noting that the matter was listed before the Bombay High Court. The top court expressed hope that the High Court would take it up on the scheduled date. Quick commerce giant Zepto is in advanced stages to raise $450 to $500 million from existing investors in a fresh funding round. Sources have said that this funding round will value the company at $7 billion. Aishwarya Anand joins us now with more. Aishwarya, please take us through Zepto's fundraising plans.
Zepto is gearing up for another major fundraise. Sources have confirmed to CNBC TV18 that the IPO-bound quick commerce unicorn is in advanced talks to raise $450 to $500 million in primary capital at a post-money valuation of $7 billion, a sharp 40% jump from its $5 billion valuation last year, when it raised $1.3 billion. The round will be led by General Catalyst and Avenir Growth, with other existing investors expected to participate on a pro-rata basis. Now, this comes as part of Zepto's broader strategy to increase domestic ownership ahead of a potential public listing. In May this year, Motilal Oswal and Ramdeo Agarwal invested $50 million each in their personal capacities to acquire stakes. Meanwhile, competition is intensifying. According to ICICI Securities, Blinkit's gross order value grew over 25% on a sequential basis in the first quarter of this fiscal year, with Swiggy's Instamart rising 22%. Datum Intelligence reports that Zepto's daily active users fell from 5.5 million in December 2024 to 4.9 million in June 2025, while Blinkit rose to 6.2 million. Despite rising competition, Zepto remains a strong player. As per a Citi report, while Blinkit leads the market with a 41% share, Zepto is either equal or slightly ahead of Swiggy Instamart's 23% market share.
Right, thank you, Aishwarya, for that. On that note, we'll slip into a short break. Coming up next, 9 people have been killed so far as multiple vehicles plunged into a river following a bridge collapse in Gujarat's Vadodara. More details when we return. Welcome back. At least 9 people were killed and several vehicles plunged into the Mahisagar River after a bridge collapsed in Gujarat's Vadodara district. A portion of the Gambhira bridge gave way during peak traffic hours. The 4-decade-old bridge connects the districts of Vadodara and Anand. A large-scale rescue operation is currently underway and authorities are investigating the cause of the collapse. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced a compensation of 2 lakh rupees for the families of the victim. My colleague Hardik Dikshit gets us the latest.
गुजरात के वडोदरा जिले से आणंद जिले को जोड़ने वाला जो ब्रिज है वो सुबह ही ढह गया और उसकी वजह से लगभग 9 लोगों की मौत जो है वो हो चुकी है। अभी आप ये जो तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं ये पादरा तहसील से लगभग 15-16 किलोमीटर दूर ये जो गंभीरा ब्रिज है वहाँ की तस्वीरें आप देख रहे हैं और ये महिसागर नदी के ऊपर से ये जो ब्रिज है वो जाता है और पादरा तहसील से आणंद जिले को जोड़ने का काम ये ब्रिज करता है। और अभी जो है रेस्क्यू की पूरी जो कार्रवाई है वो की जा रही है। NDRF, SDRF और फायर ब्रिगेड की ओर से पूरा रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन जो है वो चलाया जा रहा है। तकरीबन 9 लोगों को बचा लिया गया है और 9 लोगों की ये जो पूरी घटना हुई उसमें डेथ हो चुकी है। और यहाँ पे सबसे बड़ी बात कि पिछले 5 साल से यहाँ के स्थानीय लोग हैं वो प्रशासन को बता रहे थे कि ये जो ब्रिज है पूरा क्षतिग्रस्त है, ये इस्तेमाल करने के लायक नहीं है, लेकिन प्रशासन ने स्थानीय लोगों की एक भी नहीं सुनी और पिछले 5 साल में सिर्फ और सिर्फ ऊपर से मरम्मत करके ये ब्रिज का काम जो है वो चलाया गया। और स्थानीय लोगों ने कहा था कि हैवी व्हीकल के लिए ये ब्रिज जो है वो बंद कर दिया जाए, लेकिन प्रशासन ने वो भी बात स्थानीय लोगों की नहीं सुनी। उसकी वजह से आज इस प्रकार की गंभीर जो घटना है वो यहाँ पे हुई है।
Thank you, Hardik, for that update. In international updates now, Israeli forces continue to bombard Gaza, hitting a refugee camp in the enclave. This comes a day after the military killed at least 95 Palestinians. US President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met for the second time to discuss a ceasefire. However, there was no breakthrough. Around 109 people have died and over 160 are still missing after flash floods ravaged central Texas on the 4th of July. The state governor has said that search and rescue operations are ongoing. He added that most of the unaccounted people are from hilly country, since no one from that region has checked into hotels or registered at camps yet. Apple has named Sabi Khan as its new chief operating officer. Khan will take over from Jeff Williams as part of a long-planned succession. Sabi Khan currently serves as Senior Vice President of Operations and has been with Apple for 3 decades. Khan is set to officially take over the CEO role later this month. Uber has unveiled a number of features in India as competition in the ride-hailing space heats up. Uber India head Prabjeet Singh told my colleague Shilpa Ranipeta that they were building products in the country for the globe. He also welcomed the new cab aggregator guidelines, said it reflects inputs from all stakeholders.
So today we already have 1.4 million active drivers on the platform, 14 lakh drivers who are using us every month. We continue to scale our business as the 3rd largest market for Uber globally in terms of trips we do, and among the fastest growing markets. Second, Uber is also a very important innovation hub for us. A lot of the products which we are building in India are actually finding relevance, and we are taking it global. So examples being Uber Bikes, where you are able to now take a 2-wheeler, or Uber Intercity, which is one of the fastest growing products, are actually now being scaled globally.
I have to ask about the recent MBA guidelines also. The whole host of guidelines under that, whether it is about cancellation fees, surge pricing and all of that. How do you see the MBA guidelines, and what does that mean for the ride-hailing market in India and for Uber as a player?
I think as in mature industry, even though we are 12 years old, we are still evolving. The fact that there are regulatory frameworks is a signal that the industry is maturing, and we welcome the MVAG 2025 guidelines. I think they reflect both the inputs from all stakeholders, including industry participants, and we're looking forward to implementation of those and adoption of those by different states. So we look forward to dialogues with all the states and hope for a quick adoption by different states.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. More news and updates continue right here on CNBC TV 18.